to parenting challenging kids. And I'm happy to have a guest today, Teresa Ramirez, sorry. And I'm just really excited to talk with you and share. We're both parents. We both work with other parents and talk to parents about helping to raise kids today that are, I always look at functional, that we need our kids. That I work with a lot of kids with a lot of challenges. And I think that's one of the main goals, is that we can be functional in our families. And I love your take on also being kind, because really kindness is part of being functional, I think.
Yes.
It's a huge piece of it. So the other thing I really I saw Teresa has a book called Raising Kind Children, and she encourages parents to be the CEO of their family. And that's another big piece of what I feel like I do as a parent coach, is helping parents to know that they can be in charge. And that's different than yelling at your kids and telling them, I'm in charge here. But being, the CEO of a company doesn't have to, walk around saying I'm the boss, right? Like, you just are. And so helping parents to realize their role and what they can do, and just the value that they add to their kids. So I wanted to have you start off, just share a little bit of your story and how you got started in this work and where you're at now.
Okay. Well, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here. And I got started with a school shooting back in 2018. And God just kept saying, write a letter, write a letter. So I sat down and wrote, Dear students, and I grieved with them and sympathized with them. And then I said, you know what? There's something you can do. You can go sit with that kid that sits alone at lunch. When somebody dumps pencils or their books all over the floor, don't laugh, help them pick them up, because you could be that person dropping things the next day. So it's just you yourself as kids can reach out to other kids in a kind way. Then I kind of pushed that letter aside and sat on it. And then probably for a year. And then I thought, I got to do something with this, but what? And I went with a 21-day kindness challenge for kids. And I kind of, each day was someone or something they encounter during their normal day. So they start their day, they encounter their parents, they encounter a sibling. Then we go into encountering the carpool driver, bus driver. Then you get to school. So you've got principals, teachers, cafeteria workers. So each one of those were a day. And I did that for 21 days. I got a lot of great feedback from that. Then I was able to go speak at a few schools. It was wonderful. But COVID ripped the rug right out of that, because we all ended up at home staring at a screen like we are now. And I started to really pay attention to how adults were interacting with each other and how they spoke to each other. I was horrified, actually, how cruel adults were being to each other. And then I found out, the kids are reading your social media, number one, because they don't want you talking about them on social media. But then they read and they said, well, okay, they said this, so I can go say that about a kid at school. No, 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 no. So I switched my focus up and started to focus on parents and how they need to be the CEO. They need to decide the philosophy and values that they want their children to grow up with. And it starts with you as parents. You're the role model. So you watch what you say on social media. You watch your road rage in the car when someone cuts you off. And it starts there. And so now I talk to PTOs, other parenting groups, Rotary clubs, but anyway, at just any organization, because kindness can be anywhere, but I do focus on parents.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. And I love how it just was so organic. It started
It
with something that
was.
was on your heart, and then challenging the kids. The church that I go to, we do this Light the World challenge during the holidays. And I work with, I teach Sunday school for 12, 13-year-olds and mostly boys in my class this year. And we're doing a similar thing. And I love this because it's just who they encounter, and I love having them think about that, because sometimes we come up with these really elaborate things that maybe the kids are going to be able to do, maybe they won't, but for them to come up with some things where they can be that light in someone else's life, even their parents.
Even their parents, and then to be kind to what I call invisible people, that people, they know they're there and they serve a great role, like the custodians, your cafeteria workers. They interact, but they don't interact a lot of times. And the kids need to say thank you. They need to appreciate the value that those invisible people bring. And that's one of the things I encouraged when I did that challenge, to just be appreciative of everyone you encounter during the day.
Yeah. So how do you get a hold of these parents? Like, how do you reach them?
Through podcasts like this one. And I have a networking group, and they're always setting me up with different parents. And that's basically how I get everybody.
Yeah, that's great. The other thing I saw in your book that you talked about a lot that I really liked too was this idea of family values. And I think that in our society today, I see a lot of parents really struggling with this. Maybe they didn't feel like they were raised with values, or maybe they're trying to get away from, my parents did this and I don't want to do this to my kids. And so I see kind of this trend of, I'm not going to teach my kids, values or, roles or, those kind of things, because they should be able to choose. And I think we're in agreement about this, what would you say to parents that say, I don't want to do that. I want my kids to be free to be whatever they want or do whatever they want. What do you say?
And that's wonderful. It really is. But children thrive, as you know, on boundaries. They really need that direction because their little minds aren't fully developed. And if they're running in one direction, they're like, oh my gosh, if you keep running, you're going to hit a wall. You would stop them, right? So same thing. It's just, you have to be intentional. That if think about it, think about the parents, think about it, that what do you want your child to grow up to be? How do you want them to treat others? And you have to intentionally show them a path. And I always say, I hope it includes kindness, because that's going to change the world. And that's what you want. You want your happy child, you want your healthy child, your kind child, but you really want them to be compassionate, because those are the things that make a difference.
Yeah. I agree so much. And I see so much of, I think that's what parents want, but I feel like there's this confusion, it's like, in our talking about inclusion and it feels like we're more on the angry side of it, right? Like
Right.
somehow we're going to teach this compassion by being angry at everybody that doesn't believe the same way that we believe, or instead of teaching like we're all human, we're all children of God, and where do we meet in our humanity, and encouraging that kindness in that. And I do think it starts with the parents.
It does start that's my opinion. Then that's the research I've done, and that's what I found. And I think if the parent is that angry, they need to look in the mirror. Why are you angry? And do you need to fill up your kindness tank? Are you being kind to you? And, are you taking that 15 minutes before everybody gets up in the morning with that cup of coffee, and just having that peace before everybody gets up and the day starts? Are you taking that time after everyone goes to bed and taking that quiet moment, and maybe start to journal what you want tomorrow to look like?
Yes.
But I
Yeah.
think if people that are that angry, it's so sad because it's so true. But you have to look what's in their kindness tank.
Yeah. I agree. I agree. And I think, um, I work with people a lot as a counselor, and I tell this to kids, but I tell it to adults too. It's like everybody deserves kindness, even yourself.
Mhm.
And so teaching people to be able to say like, and not expecting necessarily everybody else to do that for you, but learning how to do that for yourself and to keep that cup full. I love that, because I think that then we teach our kids, not in a, I think when we're grabbing and we're kind of angry and it's like, I'm going to stand up for myself. It's not really a kindness. It's more of a, it's like, I'm I'm only I matter, only what I think matters. And
Right.
this is an outward focus rather than inward, but in that outward focus. And we know the research shows that if we really want to help with anxiety and depression, which is running rampant in our society
Mhm.
and among our kids, I would say it's probably 90 to 100% of the kids I work with have anxiety and depression.
Oh,
And sometimes both, but usually the anxiety drives the depression. And so that outward focus of like, one of the things we work on is helping kids to give a good response to somebody.
Mhm.
We've kind of lost that in our society,
Yes.
so just saying, yes to their parents, because our brain want to automatically go negative. And when we give a good response, it helps the brain to go to the positive. But I like this idea of looking at the people in your immediate, like who you're going to encounter first thing
Mhm.
in the morning, and doing that kind of stuff is very similar to that good response. When you don't know what to say, you can say yes, ma'am, or thank
Yes.
you.
And people, you would be amazed. And this was something, a smile and a hello goes a long way. And people are like, huh? People like to know that you acknowledge their existence. And when you smile and say hi, that does. And I have a great example of a friend who retired, was bored stiff, and he went to become a parking garage attendant. He said his best job he's ever had. He loves it. But he went on vacation for 2 weeks. When he got back, his regular people are like, oh my gosh, thank God you're back. I missed that smile and good morning. My day has not been the same for my days have been off for the last 2 weeks because I did not have your smile and your good morning. And he looked at me. He was so cute. He looked at me. He goes, I never realized you kindness lady. You told me how important it was, but he said I didn't realize the impact I was having on people until that happened.
Yeah. It's amazing. I know that a lot of schools have really worked on having somebody there to greet the students when
Mm-hmm.
they come in, teachers being at the door to greet the students as they come into the classroom. And I think, in our churches, like
Yes.
I think people forget, like we have greeters in a lot of
Mm-hmm.
churches, but those people that go out of their way to learn people's names and
Yes.
to
Yes.
say who they're, to meet them by name. And that's what I see happening in some of the schools, across the nation. It has been super helpful. It's
Mm-hmm.
way more likely that a child's going to continue and come back. They only need just it only takes one person to be kind. If that's the only reason why your child's going to school so they can see Mrs. Brown, then great.
Yes. Well, and that is, it only takes one person to be kind. And you're right. There were studies that show if you and I exchange an act of kindness, our serotonin levels go up. And that's the happy hormones. Well, we're happy. But the fascinating thing is, I still to this day find this fascinating. Anybody that observed that act of kindness, their serotonin levels also go up. So, with one act of kindness, we've created this ripple in this room of kindness in our little corner. So, if everybody in their little corner is creating a ripple, we're going to merge those ripples together and create a wave of kindness. And that's the goal. That's the goal. That everybody, you just have to focus on your little piece. You don't have to go big, just your little corner.
Well, and just the effect that has on our kids, that's
Yes,
why it's so important. It's not just teaching kindness to your kids, it's demonstrating that. And I
yes,
encourage families to volunteer together, to let your kids see you minister to other people, to be a part of that with you, bring in things that are important to you, bring your kids along in that. Don't just, that's not just your own separate thing, it's like, and I love how that, just them observing that. Yeah,
yes.
that's great.
And I was going to say this time of year, perfect opportunity, food banks. Okay, let's go to the grocery store. We're going to buy things just for the food bank, and you're going to pick them out. You involve your kids, and then you all go to the food bank. This was another thing. I've had parents go, "Yeah, we did, but then I took it to the food." No, no, no. You have to.
Yeah,
They have to see it
yeah.
through to the end. That's the goal, so that they see what happens and they see all the other. And this was an eye opener for some kids. They see the line of people that don't have enough to eat, and their brain never. They're like, "What do you mean? I have plenty." Again, they can't see beyond, and that's okay. That's what this exercise teaches them.
Mhm.
And the other great thing I came up with, or I did not, someone else did. They got the soccer team, the chess team, get them together and do a sock drive. Number one requested item in homeless shelters, socks and t-shirts. And the sock drive was just easy. Um, and you just get your kid to get everyone involved in whatever group they're with, and they help them organize it, let them do as much as possible, but help them organize it. And then you take the socks to the homeless shelter.
Well, that's awesome. I love it. I love the uh in your book, like just the small, like practical things it's just filled with, right? Like
Yes.
here's some of the things that I just made a list of some of the practical tips that you gave. Giving hugs, sticky notes, to encourage your kids. What's the best thing that happened to you today? Asking your kids that.
Check in.
What made you laugh? Um, and I always add, with kids that have trouble giving answers about what happened that day, I say, who did you help today? And it
Oh,
helps
that's a
them
good
to
one.
kind of be focused. Saying please and thank you, and parents modeling that. We teach
Mhm.
our kids when they're toddlers to do that most of the
Right.
time, and then we kind of lose that, and their executive functioning skills go down as they go through puberty. So having a refresher on please and thank you and yes, yes, mom, yes, dad is like perfect for their brains. Gratitude, as a
Absolutely.
family being thankful.
Hmm.
I think sometimes parents will be like, why are my kids complaining all the time? And I'm like, how often are you complaining? Like, how grateful are you for them, for, your family, for things like that? Um, yeah, so, so what if your kids, I'm going to phrase this kind of
Okay.
around my world of what I work with,
Okay.
but what if your kids are actually your greatest challenge? Like for parents that are dealing with really, kids with a lot of mental health issues or behavior, which a lot of times it shows up in kids as behavior issues. Um, they're actually not kind even to their parents. They hit, they rage, they break things, there's holes in the walls. Um, what what would you say to those parents, like in
Yeah.
starting something like this?
Yeah. That's a challenge. Um, I would start with making sure your kindness tank is full. Are you taking care of you? Because you're not going to be able to take care of any child, let alone one with challenges. You have to take care of you first. You have to get professional help whenever you can. I do know there are studies. I don't focus on this. I do know there are studies that acts of kindness help reduce depression and anxiety. So, again, it's where the intentional comes in, and might need to do something the night before to write out what can I get my child involved in, like the food drives or things like
Mhm.
that, to help refocus that mind into, okay, we're going to go rake leaves for Mr. Jones who broke his leg. We're going to do that today so that they can focus on Mr. Jones needs help and we're going to help him. Those kind of
outside of
things.
their struggle.
Yes. Yeah. Outside of their little zone, outside of, but if I find, and I don't have a lot of experience in it, but I find that if you can redirect their mind to something positive, to something to help someone else, it does make a big difference.
Yeah, I think you mentioned that in the book too about changing that perception or it's not, and I think that that's really a key too, is like it's not about you, even when this is happening to the parents. Like I try to help them like realize like your child's anger and distress and what they're feeling is not about you. And even if you feel like I've made so many mistakes and because a lot of trauma happens in the family and, but it's like, and then being able to pause, and think, what does this person need?
Yes.
What does this child need right now?
And helping your children learn to pause. And I will tell you, blowing bubbles, I found is the best tool to help teach a child how to pause, because you have to take the deep breath and let it out. And blowing bubbles is a huge tool. I have found it's worked great for a lot of people.
That's awesome. I love it. I love that hands-on thing.
Yeah. Now I've got bubbles on the screen.
That's all right. I can still see you. It's all clean.
But I wanted to go back just because it was a point I wanted to make, especially when there's disagreements, and whether it be in the family, whether it be outside, whatever the case is, you again have to do that stop and pause before you kind of go at it. What's important here? And you want to remember you're modeling for your child. So you have to think, what's important? Is it more important to be right or to be kind? And most people will find, but there are those that I'm right no matter what. You're going to have those people, but it's more important to be kind.
And I think that this is why I love working with parents, because a lot of times they're saying some of these things to the kids, right? Like they're focused on, you're not being kind, you're not doing these things. But in that pause, I think I have parents kind of get calm, lower their voice, speak softer, not louder, and it's not a teaching moment. It's a modeling. It's like, I am strong enough and safe enough that I can sit here with you in your distress, and I can show you what love looks like in the form of this kindness and care and safety.
And also that if you could get to that point where you can sit down and they ask them, what are you grateful for? And have the child write what they're grateful for. That also switches things in their mind.
Yeah.
Just another little thing that you can try.
Yeah, especially if you can catch it early enough, as the child's starting, they come home and they're, I think if you go there too quickly, with people in general, like it's kind of like, telling somebody to calm down or telling them like, you just need to be positive, it's like, but as you're there with them, it's like, I used to do this with my kids, and I encourage families to do this, like sometimes, especially around junior high school age, like lots of complaints, right? Like so-and-so said this, and then they did this, and a lot of negative. And I'd say, okay, everybody, now we've said enough negative things. Everybody has to go around the table and say one thing positive about, especially if they're fighting with siblings, like, it's like, I'll say, okay, we're all going to say one thing positive about, Johnny or, whatever. And just to flip it. Right. And I encourage parents to participate in that. Like, I've been really negative too, so I'm going to do this also, so it's not just something that you're like doing to the kids. It's something you're doing as a family.
And, just reminded me of something. You have that Sunday school class. If you have enough kids in their Sunday school class, you make paper airplanes. And on one wing you write their name. they write their name. They do this. And on the other one, they write something positive that they want to hear. Then you just throw them all into a big pile and you go pick out one. And then you go find little Susie and you read what's on the positive message. And they do that to each other.
No,
And
that's awesome.
that made, I saw it and I was like, wow. And the kids' faces just light up. Plus they
Yeah,
had fun making the paper airplane and throwing them around.
yeah, we do paper airplanes a lot in the family. It's a good project. So we're getting towards the end of our time, but I wanted to ask you, because you did talk about using humor with kids, with people. I think humor is great. I find there's also like this fine line too, right? Between being mean and, especially as a parent, like I'm using humor, but I'm actually like mean and sarcastic and, little jabs.
Yeah. You use one-liners, not sarcastic one-liners. And I will do that. I'll do this for you because I had a situation. And since you're modeling for your child, road rage is a no-no. It's not allowed in your journey in kindness. And I was getting off an exit ramp. Now I have no clue what I did. I will tell you that, be honest, I have no idea what I did. But we're pulling up and there's a guy in front of me. He gets out of the car and he starts stomping toward me. And I'm like, oh my, what did I do? And I had no idea. So I had this in my car, and don't ask why, a sane adult would. So I put this on and I just waved through the windshield and he stopped. He didn't stop after and looked around and ran back to his car. And I said, I don't know what would have happened had he not stopped. But I'm glad I had this, and now I carry it, and now I use this as a tool. You can walk into an angry meeting, you can walk into your kids fighting, and just kind of do this with the nose on, and see, and your kids are going to go, oh gosh, she's lost it, but it'll stop the fight. Well, I guarantee it will stop the fight.
That's awesome. I love it. I also like this idea too of I'm going to be thinking about the nose for a while, but this don't engage. Then you don't have to show up for every fight, right? And I think that's really important for parents to realize, like, our kids have every right to be disgruntled, upset, anxious, all of the feels, right? Like, we're not saying we're just going to ignore that and only think about the positive. But on the other hand, it's not really that, right? Like, we're just saying we don't have to, everything your child's throwing at you, you don't have to catch and throw back. You don't have to have the last word. There's a lot of power in just being okay with that. I find that a lot of times when kids are upset and they're venting, we start getting sidetracked. Like, I don't like your language. I don't like the way you said that. Don't talk to me.
I want to fix it. I want to fix it. And sometimes they just need, that's their only way that they know of to get it out. And you do just have to sit there and go, okay. And I had to, when my kids were little and we were going through, I had to sit in the counselor's office and not react, as my son told me every nasty thing I'd ever done since he was born. And I couldn't react. It was horrible. It was horrible. But you know what? It has come into practice. And as my kids grew up, because I didn't react, they ended up telling me almost everything. We did have a few things as we got in the teenage years that they didn't tell me about, but we had a good communication. And I was thankful for that.
Yeah, I love it. That's great. And that's what we want, right? Like, it's about the relationship with our kids.
And it's not easy. I'm not going to tell you it was easy. It was not.
No, I don't think that parenting is easy. And I tell parents all the time, like, I get it, especially when you have, things going on, whatever you've been through as a family, and whatever your kids are going through, it's not easy, but I also feel like it is, though, really important, and it is really valuable, and your family is really precious, and I think sometimes people just need that reminder. It's like, even if you only start with kindness in your family, how you treat each other, and how you react to their unkindness. Because I do work with a lot of families that they are kind to their kids, and there's still this stuff, that is
Right,
happening.
right.
And the parents are just like, but we don't treat anybody, like this. And I've seen it, that husband and wives are not treating each other this way, it's like, it's not just that they, but it's still being able to model that. And I think helping them to get outside of themselves. I wanted to share a story that came up, that I was reminded of the family that I worked with that I think you'll love to, from where you're at. Part of our program that we do with the family is we get the family to volunteer to do things. The program is shorter now, but when it was longer and I had more time, like that was a big piece of the last part of the program. So it was really actually started out having the kids volunteer for something. But since they have to be close with their parents during the time they're doing the program, it took the whole family. So I had a family that lived in kind of a rundown area of town, and a lot of struggles, and they had the police there numerous times, so they felt very isolated from their neighbors. Like they were the worst family in the block, in their minds, probably more than it was really true, but that's how the mom felt. Single mom, couple kids. And so I asked them what they were going to do to volunteer. We talked about it, and the boy said, well, we could clean up this lot that everyone kind of just dumps stuff there. And but yet the kids would kind of go and play over there. So one Saturday, the family, I get to come a couple of times, but they just started cleaning up that area, and other people in the neighborhood noticed. And the landlord lived very close there, and he noticed what they were doing. And he came and thanked the family for doing that, which was huge for this kid that had only been in trouble in that neighborhood before. Everyone was staying away. And then the landlord offered them a better spot in the trailer park. And so they got a better home, a more, just a nicer place to live out of it. And but the main thing that the mom was just like so happy about was just how she's like, nobody hates us, like everybody's okay with us. Like they kind of had this community around them after that, which was huge, which is a lot of what we need, right? Like we get isolated in our stress and in our battles that we're fighting, whether they're interpersonal or fighting against society or whatever. But it was that act just really brought them into a sense of home and community. So I love what you're teaching. And
yeah, I love that story.
Yeah, it was very powerful for them. It was life-changing. It changed them from where they had been to where they wanted to be. So, well, thank you, Teresa. Is there anything you want to say?
I'm just remember that, those everybody's pain. This is one of my favorites, but it's mine. But everybody's pain is as unique as a fingerprint, and you don't know what that person's going through. So just always, always try to be kind.
Yes, I agree. Thank you for that. I appreciate it so much. Loved having you here today. There's going to be some links so that you can get a hold of Teresa and get a hold of her book that will be in the show notes. So look for those. And oh yeah,
I was going to say, and I'm going to offer your listeners a free 75 acts of kindness checklist. So if they don't know where to start, you choose one of those.
Oh, that's great. That's great. I love it. Okay, so all of that will be in the links. Make sure you like and comment and subscribe to this channel, and go over to the podcast and subscribe to Teresa's as well.